Hi creative friends, this is Soraya and thank you so much for being here. So I went digging through all of my stuff and I'm so glad that I did because I found all of my, well, not all of them, but a lot of my abstract still lifes that I had done. God, I really honestly don't know how long ago. It must be like 25 years ago. But it was really interesting because I realized that I had made a whole series. As you can see, I have like number 1 through number 8, and I think there's even more. But what I did is I wanted to explore a still life through abstract art, but I also wanted to make it very Indian. And so some of these are mixed up with portraits, but as you can see, and I'm going to try to bring it up closer, and I will post these in the community, like, where I can post pictures. I'm going to post a few of these just so you can like see it a little bit better than through the video. But see, I was kind of making it very Indian inspired. And I went through this whole thing where I only wanted to paint mortar and pestles because it's such a huge part of everyday life in India with our cooking. And it's just such a cultural kind of like it has so much symbolism and emotion, and there's so much that goes into it, and that's what still lifes are. Like even in the Western tradition, the still life started off as taking everyday items that were imbued with symbolism and elevating them to art. That's how the whole like the tradition of still life started, because before that it was all about like painting portraits, and usually of rich people, like only of rich people, because they were the only ones that could afford it. So they wanted portraits painted of them in their finery, and all their gold, and say gold goblets would be close by. Like if you really study still lifes, that's how they started off. I'm sorry, not still lifes, but if you study like painting, it started off with portraiture of rich people, and then it turned into, oh, we're gonna take everyday ordinary stuff and turn it into art. And I think it was Chardin, who is a French painter, and I think that's how it began. But anyways, I'm sorry for that long song and dance, but I wanted to paint mortar and pestles, and it's really interesting for me to look at these because first of all, I'd completely forgotten about them, but the second thing is I can see like how my visual language has stayed the same and how it has also changed, because there are things that I can look at it and I can go, oh, that totally is me, even present day, like the reds, like just red, red, red. And my dots, like I love putting dots everywhere. So if you look at my still lifes, dots, 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 like it's just like it's so interesting. So yeah, but in a lot of ways, like my stuff has changed also. So as you can see here, this is a mortar and pestle, this is a mortar and pestle, this is a mortar and pestle, and I like some of these I titled Like a Song of India. Another one is titled Mortar and Pestle Saffron, Mortar and Pestle series Cinnamon, Mortar and Pestle series Turmeric. So yeah, it's just interesting for me to just see my thought process from, I don't know, a lot of years ago. So this was a brochure that I had, and as you can see, like that's also like a mortar and pestle, a mortar and pestle, mortar and pestle, and this was my mortar and pestle series. And yeah, anyways, it's just interesting for me because I had just completely forgotten about it. But I will post some of those paintings in the community area, so if you guys wanted to take a look at it. But painting still lifes in an abstract way is a really interesting kind of a process, and you can make it as whimsical or as deep as you want. Like when I just showed you the mortar and pestle series, like that was a very, very deep for me. There was a lot of thought and intention, and symbolism, cultural meaning, symbology, archetypes, etc. All of that went into it, even if at that time I wasn't articulating it as deeply as I am present day. It was all still there. But yeah, anyways, I also like doing more painterly types of still lifes, but you know, the abstract ones are just like anything goes. So I kind of love doing those as well. So I'm really glad I found those actually. So now what I'm going to do is I am just going to start building up on my apples. These are the two apples here and this bowl. Yeah, so let me just see here what I want to do. I think I want to kind of start modeling the apple, and I still want to keep like a lot of like the abstract parts. I want to keep it because I think that's going to make it like super interesting. So I don't want to cover it all up. And like I think I've mentioned this before, I tend to have a heavy hand when it comes to covering stuff up, and then later on I regret it and I go, oh, I wish I hadn't have done that. So hopefully I can stop myself from covering so much stuff up. But I still want to model it a little bit. Like I don't want it to be like completely flat. So I'm just gonna kind of start modeling things a little bit here. So if you guys were gonna do abstract still lifes, you know, I would just say, you can approach it any way you want. Like that's the great thing about still lifes is when you do it, I'm sorry, that's when you're doing abstracts of anything actually, whether it's portraiture, whether it's whatever. The interesting thing about it is it's wide open. Like you can just do whatever you want. And that's why like I love alternating between say a more painterly type of you know, whether it's portraits or still lifes or whatever it is, I like alternating between a more painterly style and a more abstract style because each strengthens the other and feeds into the other. That's what I find. It's just so interesting how you would think, oh, they're so different. They're not, you know, they're totally unrelated, but I don't find that to be true at all. I just find that, you know, each feeds into the other. So when I'm painting something like, say, you know, this was a more painterly style of a portrait, it seems like it's totally different from, say, you know, this, which is completely abstracted, or very abstracted, I should say, but it's not. They both feed into the other in really interesting ways. And I just, yeah, I love that. So I'm just going to start kind of modeling the apples a little bit here while still trying not to cover everything up. Oops, I better move that out of the way there. It's blocking the light. So I know it's not like looking like an apple, but that's okay. That's totally okay. The thing is, you guys, and I've mentioned this before, it's like for certain things, like say a still life, you know, a bowl, an apple, whatever, it doesn't have to mimic it exactly. Your brain is going to fill in stuff. It just is. Because your brain has seen an apple before, it knows it's an apple. So even if you just suggest it, like think about a kid's drawing. It's just a very basic shape, and it could be, you know, so like sketchily kind of drawn, like maybe with just even a few lines. And I've seen art in museums, like modern art, where things are just suggested and your brain just fills in the rest. And that's kind of the beauty of it, really, is your brain just starts filling stuff in. And I'm just gonna start modeling it a little bit here. So as you can see, you guys, I'm still keeping a lot of the, you know, abstracted parts. Like, I'm not getting rid of everything. I don't know about a lot, but I am keeping some of it. And I'm gonna spread some of it in on the table here. So now what I'm gonna do is I am going to, let me see, I'm gonna figure out the table. I want to kind of make the table a little bit more solid because it's too busy for me. I'm getting kind of distracted here by the table. So I want to, like, see this part over here? I want to get rid of it. Or maybe I can keep a little bit of it, but certainly not the whole thing. And I'm wondering if I should bring in a little bit of blue. Yeah, I think let me see here. I think actually I'm gonna bring in some blue for the table. I think that's what I want to do here. Uh-oh. I think it's time for me to clean my desk again, you guys. My desk is just so, it's so, like everything is just falling off my desk. That's when I know it's time to clean my desk, you guys. I'm sorry about that. Okay, I'm gonna use some blue ink here, and I am going to, like, kind of spread it around here, like so. And I don't know if you guys remember, but I did another still life series, and shadows go this way. So shadows are, they lay flat, and even though this is abstract, I still want to kind of, like, I still want to make my shadows flat. Like, so I do borrow some things from a painterly approach, and that's kind of what I was trying to say. Like, you know, when we paint in a painterly way, and then when we paint abstract, things move from one to the other. And if you look at even very realistic, even photorealistic art, and if you isolate parts of it, like get a viewfinder and isolate parts of it, you will see that it's very abstract. There are parts of even photorealism that are extremely abstract, and vice versa. So yeah, I still want my shadows to lay flat. And see, it's starting to kind of take shape a little bit here. And I'm just gonna give this a second coat. Now I'm not worried about the ellipse of the bowl. Right now, I'm just trying to like block in the background and the table more, just kind of try to solidify things a little bit, and then I'll work on the details. And I talked about this as well, like you work, you know, big shapes to small shapes, large color fields to small color fields, loose to tight. So that's kind of what I'm doing. I'm not worried about all the details right now. So if things look like very hinky, that's okay. So one of the things that really strengthened my painting, you guys, is working in between like a more painterly approach to abstract, working in different journals, because everything, you know, feeds off everything else. And that's one of the things that really strengthened everything. My visual language, my painting, my understanding of things. You know, because when I took classes, it's like you learn so much, and it's one thing to know it with your brain, and then it's a completely different thing when you're painting to actually understand what you know in your brain and have it come out through your hands into your fingers and onto your page, and then to do it. Those are two different things. Those are not always, like, it's not a smooth process. At least it's not for me. So one of the things that really helped me really integrate those lessons was just moving from one project to another, you know, making multiple backgrounds at one time. And when my daughter was really young, I kind of had to do it by necessity because time was so limited. I had to make the most of my time. So, but it taught me so much working in that way, like working on a whole bunch of backgrounds at one time, working on different journals at one time, you know, working from abstract to more painterly, and then, you know, vice versa. All of those things taught me to integrate the lessons I was learning. So yeah, you guys, like everything feeds off everything else. And I don't ever look at anything as a waste of my time or my energy or my resources or anything like that. Okay, so I'm just kind of building up my forms here. They're still looking a bit wonky, but you know, you can kind of sort of see like, okay, this is, you know, it might turn out into be an apple, you know, at some future time. Now I do want to put a little bit of the blue. Actually, I do want to put just a little bit of the blue into the apple there. That's gonna like give it some like weight, you know. So let me see here. Let's see. Okay, so I'm just kind of building it up, you know. There we go. And because this apple is behind this apple, there's going to be a little bit of a shadow on this apple over here. And now what I'm going to do is I am going to kind of build up a little bit on this bowl. And I've got to think carefully because I don't want this red over here to kind of compete with the red of the apples. So I'm going to keep some of the red, but I think I'm also going to cover up a lot of it just because I don't want the competition. I want my eye to go to the apples. I don't want there to be like too much of a competition. So there's a dark blue gray. I think I'm gonna use this dark blue gray here. I'll keep some of the red. Okay, you guys, so I think I'm just gonna let this dry and then come back to it and we'll just kind of see what's going on. So anyways, you guys, if you've watched all the way to the end, thank you so much and I'll see you in my next video. Bye.